again, I feel it's kind of disingenuous to some of these things that we love. With one exception, it was posted on the site. Any plot line that involves the assassination of Jar Jar Binks is fine.
Oh, yeah, that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah,
or the total genocide of the Gungan race.
That's a good point.
Just blow up Naboo.
Yeah, if you can bring up major characters like that just deserve to die,
Yes.
bring them into the story.
You know how far back
I
do
have
you
no
go?
problem blowing Jar Jar away.
Yes. You have an opportunity to rewrite these stories the way you see fit.
Yes.
So that means, like, when I run my old Republic game, you can kill the predecessor, so there will be no more Fett line.
Sure.
Yes.
All right.
You know, I was actually thinking about this is totally unrelated, but how it would be interesting to play like a troop of Mandalorians
Yeah.
in that setting. You know, like at the height of their power. That would be really interesting.
Well, Sean is going to play a Mandalorian.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm playing a mechanic.
Excellent. Fine work.
I'm playing Mike. He's my mechanic.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I even actually brought that up in as a retort or just a follow-up question on one of the message boards of, you know, if you don't use these characters, this intellectual property, is that not being genuine to the setting? I think that in Star Wars you kind of have to, you don't necessarily have to use Han and Leia and Anakin, but you can use any of the zillions of background people.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. There's no creature that's ever walked across the screen in Star Wars that doesn't have a name and a race and a background.
In some book somewhere.
Right.
Wedge
So-
Antilles is my favorite character. He's barely in 2 movies. Barely 3 movies.
One game or one setting that I think that would be virtually impossible to do is a Marvel or DC superheroes.
Go steal Batman's car.
Which is why I think
Yes.
playing
Road
mutants,
trip.
Go hijack it.
playing
teenage
mutants and masterminds worked for us because we didn't have that.
You didn't have the
hang-up.
baggage of,
Right.
of knowing the universe that well.
That universe has its big bads and has its powerful characters, but for the most part, we didn't have to worry about.
But the thing was, we don't know enough about them.
Right.
So we didn't know enough about the characters that Mike was introducing into the game to know which ones he'd made up and which ones were from a book.
Right.
It wasn't until he showed us the drawing or the pictures of them in the book that we knew, oh, that's somebody from a book.
You know, I like the idea of, say, playing a DC or a Marvel where you are say we are the Justice League, but you play it by committee. Because everybody has an idea of what the character is, but we would say, Jason, I don't really think Superman would do it that way.
You
And
try convincing
really,
Jason of that.
well, yeah, but no, you try holding everybody at the table to this standard of really playing who that character
That
is.
would you would end up not playing
Probably.
because it would all end up being a debate over.
But how else would you handle something like that?
You
Because
just have to play it, and then if you didn't think they did it right, so what?
You'd have to trust your players to do that.
I think the underlying theme of this is sometimes people take canon way too seriously.
yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
And I'm just as guilty as probably most people, especially when it comes to my Star Wars games. And it's because I want it to feel authentic. But really, does it really matter that much?
To the average player, no, but it matters to you because you're creating it and you know these things. But
Right.
say to me or Sean or whoever.
Yeah, and there's been plenty of times where I've injected a character that I know who it is, but nobody else knows who it is.
And you put a lot of work into it that's almost a waste.
There was an instance in the last time I ran Star Wars where in one of the book series, when Episode 1 first came out, they did a scholastic book series of Qui-Gon and his previous Padawan before Obi-Wan, who went dark. And I actually injected that character into the game. Nobody knew who it was. And I never told anybody that he was in that. It was a murder mystery part where everybody was at a dinner.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, and one of the characters was this dark Jedi.
That's the campaign you keep promising me that we'll go back to.
Right.
I didn't realize Qui-Gon had such a terrible track record.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Obi-Wan was a good...
Yeah.
1 out of 3?
He didn't really get a good chance at...
It was his fault.
It was all his
No,
fault.
it was Yoda's fault for
Should have
letting
left him in the desert.
Yoda's fault.
Should have left him in
Left
the
his ass
desert.
in the desert. I also read I don't know if it was a fanfic about how Sidious was really Anakin's father. He knocked up
Shmi.
Shmi.
Great name.
Me?
Yeah.
Shmi is too close to Shmi.
Wouldn't it be cool though if you did play a campaign that was centered around like bounty hunters, and at some point you got to encounter Greedo, and you got to mess with his blaster so that it was off and to the right, up and to the right.
The sights were off to such a degree.
And that's why he missed.
That would be refracting focus on the front of it. When
That would be an interesting campaign. Like you're playing a covert like Lucas team that you have to go in and make things work the way
Lucas made them work.
Yes.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Like, you are the retconners. You go in and change history just a little bit.
Lucas says
he contested that Greedo always shot first, and we all know that's crap.
And that we just couldn't tell because of the
way it was edited.
The way it was edited, and the film quality was poor, and the scene was dark and wasn't well lit, and blah blah blah.
I will put in my VHS tapes and I will show him.
Already did it.
He's a senile old man.
You showed him?
No, I already watched it. I put it in and was like to see if I could see the evidence of what he was talking about.
Frame by
It's not
frame,
there.
back and to the left.
See, he should have just left it as is. And
sat in his bags of money.
And I don't know if he's trying to make Han Solo better or more of a good guy by doing that. I don't know
if he's trying to send. I mean, it's kind of like the whole replacing guns with walkie-talkies in ET.
Yeah.
Why? People in the world have guns.
Retcon, what do they call that? Revisionist history, like taking the N-word out of.
I was just gonna say
exactly.
That, yeah.
You just. And I saw that they were taking the N-word out and replaced it with the word slave. You're stealing all of the power away from that book. The whole purpose of having that word in the book is to show that it's ugly and disgusting and hateful. And that's the whole reason it's there.
Well, and everything is a product of the time that it's from. And when you take these things away, you change the product.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not
So,
which Han shooting first or not shooting first is nowhere near as bad as taking the N-word out of Huck Finn.
But it's in the same vein.
Sure.
I mean, it's Han Solo isn't the dirty Harry kind of guy.
he's really not a scoundrel.
He's not a bad guy.
He's really trying
He
to-
was just defending himself.
Hell no.
it was justifiable homicide one way or the other.
It's Outer Rim. You do whatever you
It
want.
was
It doesn't
Outer
matter.
Rim, and
Right.
it was this man's empire. He can do whatever he wants to the greenies.
That's right. True story.
What?
Then
He's
that's
human, man.
why we can't play Aces and Eights.
This is why we can't play anything.
Star Wars.
We can
quiet
make
over there,
anything
Mike.
horrible.
Damn greenies.
We talked a lot about Star Wars. I mean, and a little bit about D&D.
And the main thing, the reason that was that's one of the easiest genres to do that. Like I said, you almost have to do it with at least peripheral characters. Where you run the risk is, all joking aside about, smothering baby Luke. But there is that temptation of if Vader walks in and
I'm walking
everybody
out.
starts trying to shoot him.
He's going to kill you.
Campaign over.
One of the commenters, Wriggle Run, he's on Ian World forums. He said that Vader showed up in one of his campaigns and the players just started blasting him.
No way. Run.
And you get enough, especially in West End Star Wars, you could probably do it if you you concentrate focus power, and then and then it was one of those things where the game master was like, well, I'm going to fiat it. You can't kill Vader. Then you get this feeling of, well, if he's going to do it for that reason, then he's going to do it for other reasons. Then you feel like you're being railroaded.
Well,
if you don't have it, and that's why games like Fallout 3, other games that have completely interactive environment are so fun, because you feel like you can do anything. And if you're in a role-playing game and you can't do what you want to do,
Well, even in Fallout, though, they're steering you in a direction.
well, sure.
In a way, but remember that time we were talking about Fallout 3 and I found the guy behind the shed and I just blasted him and killed him right there, where he's actually a player that you need to talk to later on.
Yeah, pretty much in Fallout
And
3,
I
you
took
can
him out.
shoot anybody.
Yeah, I took him out.
Yeah, they may be really tough.
Well, there are some cutscenes where you're really kind
yeah,
of...
but see, cutscenes are different. That's almost like the
Yeah.
cameo stuff. If you do use powerful NPCs or canon characters, using them in cutscenes is probably one of the best ways to do it, because you remove that temptation of I'm going to take a
Interaction.
pot shot.
Yeah.
He should have just had Vader whip those guys' ass.
It should be just minimal interaction with major PCs.
Well, I think that's
or
one of the
NPCs.
problems that we run into with all of these systems, because they're taking one person or a group of people are taking these characters and making them tangible within the mechanics of the game.
Right.
It's like saying Elminster is a 20th level wizard. I don't think their level should ever come in to the equation.
And you know what? They did that. In 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, they did that with a lot of the iconic NPCs.
They just don't even have stats.
They don't even have stats, and people bitched and moaned because they didn't have stats.
And you can't compare your character to them.
That's right. You can't measure them up, and that's one of the biggest reasons why people complained. You have Vader, and you don't stat him out. well, then how am I supposed to know if I'm as cool as Vader?
Because if you were as cool as Vader, you would be the right hand to the Emperor. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's actually kind of a letdown. I mean, I wouldn't call it a letdown. For example, one of the characters that I played, Mike had created a bad guy to go up against him frequently. Once in a while. Foil, yeah.
Yeah.
Blackblood the Assassin. Or is it the Assassin? Blackblood the Assassin?
Mike nods his head.
Right. It's a podcast, Mike. Say yes. It was one of those guys that my character would always encounter, and it always ended up either he would escape and leave me, looking like a dipshit, or we'd kind of like fight to a draw, and then we'd pull out.
Ways, yeah. Pull out.
Pull out. Wait a minute.
Hey.
What kind of game are you
You'd go
playing?
at it, and then you'd pull out.
Was that a sword duel that you both pulled out?
Joust.
Cross swords, go at it, and then pull out.
With your long
But eventually
jousting
we got to a point where there was an encounter, and I said, this is going to be it. There isn't going to be any more encounters after this. Either his character dies or my character dies. And that was the end of the encounter. My character ended up killing him. And after it was done, it was kind of like,
What do I
felt
do
bad.
now?
It was like, there goes my enemy, my
arch
foil.
nemesis.
Yeah, my arch nemesis is gone now. But that's different, though.
And
That's not an
why-
established NPC as far as like canon goes. That's a character that Mike
And
created.
that's precisely why Captain Amazing got Casanova Frankenstein out of prison.
That's right. He had no enemies.
In conclusion of all of this, I think, in my opinion, you use iconic NPCs spare, because if you oversaturate a story with them, if you play a Lord of the Rings game and you're encountering the Fellowship and essentially you're just telling the players a story, you need to let them be the star of the show. It's always kind of cool to be like, so-and-so character gave me props and things like that. But really, that's all just ego.
Right.
You really don't need to inject that into your game. No. I think it just detracts from your story.
The last thing I need is a pat on the head from Frodo.
Well done. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
It was one of my buddies, but he tried to answer the phone like he's like, "Hello, is this the gay guy?" I'm like, "What the hell?"
Should have answered
It comes
yes.
up.
Yes.
It
What can I
is.
do for you?
It comes up work. I'm like, okay, somebody from the prison's calling me.
Ask me for the gay guy.
Ask me for the
Do
gay
you
guy.
deliver?
Follow us on Twitter. We're at Gamers Table.
Like us on Facebook.
Listen to us on iTunes.
Or on Stitcher.
Got a question you want read during the show? Send us an email at feedback@gamerstable.com or leave us a voicemail at 559-546-1231. Check out some other great shows affiliated with us at rpgcrosstalk.webs.com.
You have been listening to Gamers Table, registered trademark Side Tangent Productions. Visit us at gamerstable.com. Products and intellectual properties discussed during this podcast are the properties of their respective owners. This production is for entertainment purposes only. Any commercial broadcast is prohibited without written consent from Side Tangent Productions.